Welcome to the Underwater Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of underwater portrait photography, cinematography, and everything in between. With me, your host, Brett Stanley. Welcome back to the Underwater Podcast, and this week I'm talking to freedive champion, filmmaker, and underwater performer Julie Gautier. Julia's films are a beautifully visual insight into not just the mind of a freediver, but also the powerful messages that water can convey through imagery and dance. She talks about her journey from freediver to filmmaker, and we chat about some of the amazing places that she's been diving, including swimming with sperm whales. Alright, let's dive in. Julie, welcome to the Underwater Podcast.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good.
It's great to have you on the show. I've been such a fan of your work for so many years. How did you get into creating these amazing films that you've created?
Wow. That's a small question and a big answer. So how did I start? I grew up in Reunion Island. It's a French island in the Indian Ocean nearby Madagascar. So I grew up surrounded, by water. So I was like really into the water since my really young age. And my father was a spear fisherman. So he was spear fishing fishes. So he was really loving the sea. And when I was 11, I started to go spearfish with him. So I got into the underwater world, and I got into using free diving to visit the oceans. And it's only a long time after, when I was 18, that I discovered that free diving was actually a real discipline, and that there was like competitions and stuff. So I moved to competition, and I broke like 2 French records, and I did that for 5 years. But after, I got a bit tired of it, and I was missing my, relationship I had with water, like using free diving as a skill to do something else and not as a goal. So
Right.
I quit competition for 1 year. And I was, asking myself, okay, I do have this ability to stay underwater, but what else can I do with it? And one day, someone put a camera in my hand and told me, okay, let's make a movie. I said, what?
Oh, cool.
How can I do that? I don't know anything about filming, about camera, about nothing, about films, making films. And we made actually the freefall video. I don't know if you've seen it. It's my first one. It went out in 2010. And it's Guillaume Neri jumping in the Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas. And this movie went viral. And really,
I did see that. Yeah.
Yes, gave me the confidence to move forward and write Narcos, and everything happened then after that.
That's amazing, because I remember when that short film came out, the Freefall one, and it kind of was mind blowing to me, because I hadn't really, I've been in the water all my life since I was a kid, but I'd never really had much experience with the whole free diving thing, and so seeing Guillaume kind of like base jump off the side of Dean's Blue Hole and the filming of it, and then that story, and then watching him climb back out again. That was mind-blowing. I'd never seen anything like that before.
I think it was a bit of a premiere, I think we brought something different to the underwater filming and to the underwater world and the way we were showing it. It was not a documentary. It was not a complete fiction. It was a big mix of both. And it was just only what we were. We love to play in the water and to do this, and we just decided to do something funny about it. And we didn't really at all expect that much from it. We knew that people from the free diving world would love it, but when we put it online, and it went like all over the world, and it touches not only free divers, but people loving the ocean, and even more. People that had nothing to do with the ocean. And that was kind of crazy.
I think you're right there. Like the way it transcended different groups, I think was one of the main draws of it. You know, it had this amazing soundtrack. Like the music was really compelling, and then you have him sort of skydiving to kind of to the bottom of this hole, and then basically
Mm.
rock climbing his way back out again. And as someone who's done rock climbing, since I was a kid as well, it really kind of played to that of like, oh, I'd never really thought about climbing underwater. Like I always thought of underwater being, free fall, sort of floating and stuff, but being able to kind of then pull yourself back out.
Yeah, because I am a rock climber also.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah. So that
Yeah, I did
translated.
a lot of rock exactly. So I was telling me, yeah, this is how you should do, and really use your feet and your hands, and yeah, that's why I think people can relate to it because I did a lot of that also on land.
I think what's beautiful about your work, especially with you and Guillaume, is you do kind of highlight these different aspects of the underwater experience. Like rock climbing underwater, and sort of running in the current, and being upside down in your latest film. I think you really kind of show things that people have not really seen before.
Mm. We're trying to just show that we come from that world, and us being we live on land, but we can do the same thing in the water, and it's also an element where we come from and we just forgot about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're kind of like bringing it back to people. I think people kind of, like they understand that underwater is different, but also the same at the same time. But I feel like you're kind of reminding people of the
Mm.
similarities that can be between land and water.
I hope so.
It's great. Yeah. So once you had that sort of success, that kind of viral with that film, what was your next step? What did you do then?
Then I had this idea in mind. I mean, it was like 2 years that I was with Guillaume. And all of a sudden, he started to tell me about these visions he had when he was deep diving. After 90 meters of depth, you start to have hallucination. And actually, it was not well known at that time. And he never told me about that. And all of a sudden, he started to tell me about all this hallucination he had. So the first one was his first record. I think it was like 86 or 89 meters. And he saw these gremlins, shouting and yelling at him in front of him. Then he
Yeah, right.
said another time, yeah, so it's in the movie, yeah. And then he said, yeah, I saw us getting married. So a lot of different things like this. And every time he was telling me a story like that, I could picture it in my head. And I was saying, wow, that could be like wonderful to make it in a small fiction, and just to show not only the performance of a deep dive, but also what's happening inside, what's happening in the mind. And it was just allowing me to get crazy and to use my creativity. So I invented a wedding underwater. I was
Yeah.
thinking, okay, how am I gonna do the gremlins? And as I'm completely fan of comics, I decided to do it in 2D
Yeah.
animation, and compile. I mean, of all of these like crazy idea of also these dreams that you have when you run, and you just cannot move forward, and you're so slow, and it's exactly the feeling you have in the water. So I mixed all of this, and I made and I wrote and made this. The first, for me, it was my really first movie, because Free Fall was just something we did like a vacation movie. We were editing on iMovie every day. It took us like 4 days, and we were shooting, reviewing the
Yeah.
image, and say, okay, we missed this and that, so we go back. And so the Narcos was a lot more professional. I mean, I wrote all the angles and everything I needed. I mean, I had a lot of protagonists playing on it. It was a really big job. I also did the music and editing, and it was a completely new world for me that I discovered.
Yeah. And so was this the first one that you did with Jacques Ballard as well, the
Yeah,
cinematographer?
it's actually thanks to him, because I had this idea. Okay, I knew, I don't know how actually, how to write the storyboard and to write the script, but
Yeah.
I didn't really know how to plan a shooting. So with Jacques, we were working for 5 years on amazing project called Ashes and Snow with a quite famous artist, and he was the assistant camera, and I was modeling actually for that guy. And we got
Oh, yeah.
very good friend. Yeah, we were a very good friend. And when I told him about the idea, he said, "Wow, Julie, that's wonderful. I'm gonna help you." So he found everything for me: the cameras and the people, and how to plan and to write. I mean, without him, I wouldn't have been able to do this first movie, and maybe not the rest.
So that really kind of pushed you into this sphere, like it kind of opened it up and gave you access to the skills and the techniques to kind of put these films together.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm not coming from that world, and I didn't know anything about it. So it's. I was a bit shy, to enter this world. It's quite special. So I really needed someone to guide me. And I remember writing the script. I said, okay, the most difficult scene to make is the wedding. If I can achieve the wedding, if I love it, if it's beautiful, I'm going to be able to make the entire movie. So I called Jacques. I said, okay, Jacques, please help me to do this. If we can manage to do it, I'm doing the entire piece. If not, I quit. And we did it 1 year after the official shooting. It was the end of the summer. I just called all my friends and we planned, all the costumes and stuff. And it was amazing. It was amazing because all the people were so happy to do something like this, to do something different than only free diving on the rope, or it was really a completely new experience for everyone, and we had so much fun, and the result was so amazing that I said, okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah, totally. And it's such a creative kind of step outside the box for sort of freedive films as well. Like it's it's more surreal.
Yeah, completely. It's complete fiction. It's what I love about it, because I could be really creative. And, I also dance. My mother is a dance teacher. So my father spearfisher, my mother dance teacher. You give me a camera and then I make dance underwater. I mean, it's really part of my identity and my heritage.
Well, that sort of leads me into Armor, which is one of your later films. Was that your first underwater dance film?
Yeah, completely. And it was the first time I appeared in front of the camera, actually. I
Ah,
was
right.
usually so, yeah. And the fact is also that I film on breasthold. So I think this is what makes my movies a bit different, is because the way I move underwater, I'm so free. I'm like a drone underwater, and it gives the feeling to the viewer that you are into the water. I think it's very different for a point of view of a scuba diver, that, yeah, I mean, you're more slow, you cannot go up and down, and you are stable, static, and it is, I mean, the animal or the action that is moving in front of you. But me being so free on breasthold, I can also move and move around, and it gives a lot of dynamic and life, I think. And maybe this is why I had so much attention on my movies, because it is also bringing a lot of emotion to the image.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like it is such a different kind of camera movement and body movement, because when you're on scuba, obviously you can't go up and down as much as you can on free dive.
Yeah.
So you can do these long tracking shots as the free diver comes up, or you can
Yeah.
kind of get that sense of ascending in the water, which you can't really get on
Mm-mm.
scuba.
Mm-mm. So what do you feel about that?
I feel so. I kind of really hate filming on scuba, just because it
Yeah.
feels very fixed and clunky. You're not very
Yeah.
agile in the water. But on free
Mm.
dive, and my breath hold isn't the best, so I don't I can't do it as much as I
Mm.
would like to. But having
Mm-mm.
that freedom to kind of move in all three
Yeah.
dimensions is amazing.
Yes. And I also have a very special and useful skill, is that I don't need to equalize with my hand. So I don't need to pinch my
Oh, that's
nose.
good.
So I don't need, yeah, so I can hold on to the camera all the way down. So I had, that's why my filming is so stable also, I guess.
Yeah, because you've got both hands on the camera the whole time.
Yep.
It's an amazing thing, and I think what you guys bring to the free dive, whether it's in front of the camera or behind, I think that's it definitely feels like it's free dive. It feels like it's free. It doesn't feel like it's constrained
Mhm.
at all. And the many projects you guys have done, I think for people like myself who have a love of being underwater, but maybe not the skills to stay down for long, I feel like your films are
Mhm.
so inspiring and kind of make me want to get better at it so I can experience what you guys are experiencing.
Thank you so much. I think we actually took a lot of people into freediving thanks to our movies.
Oh, totally. I think you've definitely kind of opened it up and made it seem more than just an extreme sport. I think you guys
Yeah,
make it look fun.
it is.
Yeah, I mean the video you guys did for Beyonce, the running
Yeah.
video, like that, in the current kind of running along the bottom and all that sort of stuff, that just looks like an awesome time. Like it's that I want to do that.
Yeah, it's very nice. We were doing a fun dive actually in this current, and when we did it, we said, "Whoa, that's an amazing experience! It's crazy beautiful. Let's use it and make something around it." It mostly the way I work. I just like experience something, and I just want to share it and find a artistic way to show it.
Oh, and I think that's the most true expression of creativity is having that, you just wanting to share this experience you've had and kind of make it as
Mhm.
realistic or as
Yeah.
powerful as possible. So I think with Armor, which was your kind of first time in front of the camera, I feel like
Yeah.
this kind of blew up as well, right? Like it was such a visual kind of, it's so minimal, but at the same time, it's so captivating. What was the response to that?
It was amazing. I don't even believe now how I could express so much feeling. How I could touch people the way I really wanted to. I mean, I put so much personal feelings in that movie, and I wasn't expecting people to understand it so much. And even now, when people tell me I watch Ama, I just cry, and but I cry and I feel so good about it. I really made that movie to free a pain, to talk about something that was really deep inside me, and just to tell the people that okay, pain is part of life and we can surrender and we can overcome it, and it's okay to talk about it, and it's good because the only way I could heal from that was to share it and to talk about it, and it was the only issue. And this is why also I choose movement, because I didn't want it to actually say my own pain. I just, because we all have something very difficult that happened to us. So it's like universal. And I really wanted everyone to kind of put their own feeling into the film. And it's amazing how it worked. You tell me, what did you feel about that
Oh
movie?
no, no, absolutely, and I think dance for me and is kind of like visual poetry. It's not like telling you a story in words
Mm,
where you kind of have the path prescribed to you. I think dance is very suggestive, and you make of it what you want. But when I first saw this film, the minimalness of it, this that basically in this white box,
mm,
and
mm, mm.
the slowness of your movements and how you restrained yourself. I think it's about halfway through the film that you actually leave the ground and actually
Mm,
start to
mm, mm.
bounce in and start to float. And for me, I was like, I think I had a little kind of like I cried out because it was like you had saved that for so
Whoa.
long and kind of teased it. It was amazing.
But it what is the power of it actually? Because I had this idea for 8 years in my head. I knew I wanted to take the movement, the dance movement into the water, but for that I needed the floor. Because dance is about being grounded, and do some jumps, but you're all the time using the floor. And I was like searching online, and there was a lot of things, artistic underwater movement thing, but always in mid water. So what I
Yeah.
wanted to do me was, you know, you use the floor, you use the weight to then deliver and just fly. And this is what makes it so strong. Is because you spend so much time on the floor and then you fly. That's amazing. It's an amazing feeling also.
Well, I think that was the beauty of it was the restraint, and it was such a confusing
Mm,
thing to watch. And I think someone who didn't know much about the underwater world would probably think,
mm,
this was probably not underwater until you leave the ground. And then it's like, oh, hang on, this has changed.
Yeah, I wanted to make the water disappear. That's why at the beginning I'm very static and try to not make bubbles at all. And I have this like crystal clear water. And I really wanted the people to also focus on the movement. And this is why I chose to have a really basic background. So you are not tempted to look at what's happening around. I mean,
Oh, totally. I mean, you've taken all the distractions away, even in terms of bubbles. It's very rare that they're even in frame.
yeah. I have a special technique also. I fill my sinus with water. When I go down, I just lift my head, and all the water goes inside the sinus, so all the air is out. So when I move, there's no more bubbles.
So that's another question I had for you. Was you seem so negatively buoyant in this part.
Yeah.
How is it just because it's so deep, or are you wearing weights, or have you just let out all your air?
Yeah.
What is your technique to kind of keep that sort of stability?
Yeah. First thing is the depth. So it's 10 meters. When I was thinking about the movie, I was training into a 5 meters pool. So I had to put a lot of weight on, and it was quite difficult. And then I found out about that pool, that Y40 is the deepest pool in the world, and it has a 40 meters tunnel. But there was also this 10 meters flat bottom that was amazing. So when I saw the pool, I said, oh my God, that's the place. So 10 meters also already. So you're less buoyant. Then I go down, lift my head, fill my sinus, and I blow some bubbles. So I'm less buoyant. I have less air in my lungs, and I do have a homemade weight around my waist under the dress. It was like about 1 kilo. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're in 10 meters, which is about 30 feet of water, which is kind of compressing everything and making you less buoyant to start with. And then you've got a kilo, which I think is like 2.5 pounds of weight on you. And how long were the takes? Like, how long doing all this movement and blowing some air out could you actually stay down for?
Yeah, by the time I was leaving the surface, swimming down, getting in position, put my hair in position, blowing bubbles and blah, 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 dancing and come back up, I think it's like 2 minutes 30, 2 minutes average. And it was an all day of doing that.
Quite exhausting.
Yeah, like maybe 30 takes.
Yeah, right. That's pretty awesome. Were you ever tempted to do it on scuba, or that's just didn't even enter your mind?
No, it never comes to my mind, because you have to deal a lot with the bubbles, and you have to wait for all the bubbles to leave the frame, because when you're scuba, you breathe down and you leave the frame, and you have to wait for the bubbles to leave. And I couldn't be able to do all the jumps up and come back down. That would have been like quite dangerous. So I did it at freedom, and I had the skill to do it. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I think I think knowing that you did this all on breath hold makes it even the more special, the more impressive, I think.
Some people are touched by the performance, other by the beauty, other by the emotions. It's just fitting to a lot of people, and I'm really happy about that different readings.
Oh, it's I'm literally watching it now while we speak, just on repeat. I'm just kind of watching, sort of seeing what you're doing, and the fact that it's done without, it's done practically. It's not like it's computer generated or you were using, like wires or anything. Like it is so impressive. And that big jump you do sort of just towards the end, where you probably get like 5-6 meters in the air.
For this one, I relieved the weight, so I could play with that also. Because if I had too much weight, I couldn't jump so high. So I just leave the weights. I could jump a lot higher and be able to fall back down. That's like some little tricks, really useful.
I think that's kind of what I love about your work is that there are these little tricks, and it kind of, for me as a creative, and I'm trying to work out how you did it. I'm trying to look at it and go, what has she done here? Like, what technique is this? So, and I think that kind of takes us pretty nicely into Narcisse, which is your latest film, which again is kind of bending minds a little bit. So tell us about that one. Tell us about Narcisse.
So Narcisse was done during COVID, the third lockdown, and Florian Fischer, that is a friend that is owning the Behind the Mask production. They do a lot of underwater beautiful stuff also. And since a long time we know each other and we wanted to work together, but we didn't really have the chance to. And he called me, he said, "Hey, Julie, I have this idea, this setting, and Y40 is empty and it's locked down. So what do you think about we go there, we spend 1 week and we try things and we do something together?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So I arrived,
Yeah.
and he had this entire set that was under the bridge that is crossing the pool. Y40 is crossed by the tunnel full of air where you walk actually to go to the change room, and you are in the tunnel full of air and you can see what's happening in the pool. And of course, there's a floor, and Florian put a light under that tunnel, so upside down, and that was the set, this beautiful light. And he said, "Yeah, I asked for a lot of free divers to do something under the tunnel in this light, and nobody was actually able to perform more than 3 seconds under the bridge." I think it's why, I guess, like stability, équilibre, I don't know, but it was very difficult for them to perform upside down under the tunnel. So he said, "Yeah, maybe you can do this and that." And I just I went down and played around and stayed for like two minutes and a half dancing. And he came back up. He was like,
Yeah.
"You're kidding. You're fucking kidding me." I said, "What? Are you deceived? Do you want me to do more?" He was like, "Come on." It was so easy. He couldn't really expect more. And so this is how it started. And it was a lot of improv. And what's funny is because he's on scuba, so the camera is stuck under the bridge, okay? Everything is stuck under the bridge. The camera, the light, and I have to go down, flip, and put my feet under the bridge and be it's completely the opposite of Amma. I had to be as much buoyant as I could, so I could float and be really stable on the roof, okay?
Yeah.
And Flo is breathing, and as he's breathing, there's actually and there's a making of, if you want to see it. Under the bridge,
I did watch it, yeah.
there's a window, and this window filled with air. There was an air pocket in this window, and it became a mirror. And this is how the mirror appeared. And we said, "Whoa, that's amazing. Let's use it." And of course, came to our mind the Narcisse tale. Narcisse, that was the guy that fell in love with himself and drowned into his own image. And I said, "Yeah, well, that's a beautiful story to tell about the situation that we are facing. Humanity is facing extinction. We are destroying everything. And this is what we wanted to tell about this project." And so we walked around that. And the idea is, and this is why we're changing a lot of direction, is just to say that if we have another point of view, if we change the way we see things, we can reverse the situation. And, all of this happens because a group of friends had the idea to come together and work on something. And it's amazing.
I think that's a beautiful story as well of, like this is kind of something that came from a small idea, and then, through the teamwork, you kind of created something bigger than yourselves.
Yeah. What's amazing also, it was meant to be. It was in March, and in March is the season for narcisse flower. So there was narcisse, like real narcisse, because narcisse is a flower also, all over the place. And this is why at the end of the movie, you have the flower, just to point out.
I did wonder. Yeah.
It's a narcisse.
That's beautiful. It is, again, as I said before, it is a mind-blowing shot, and it is so simple. As like Alma is so simple, this is so simple as well. And it had me looking at it and trying to overthink how it was done. I was thinking you guys built a platform, and then in that platform was a hole, and all this sort of stuff. And then I watched the behind the scenes, and I'm like, oh my God, they just used the bridge underneath, and it's just a window. Like, it is so simple, but it's so powerful.
I think this is the idea of I want to say that just open your eyes and your heart to what is surrounding you, and magic happens. And sometimes maybe leave the brain where it is and go deeper into the heart and stop thinking.
Yeah, it's a great
Mm,
message. And I think that's what I love about the underwater is that it makes me think of things that I don't usually think of. I think, when I'm shooting or creating stuff, I'm taking stuff underwater that's not meant to be down there. I'm doing things,
yeah.
I'm putting people in positions that they're not normally in. And all these
Mm-mm-mm.
things kind of spark something in me to go, oh, what if we do this? And we can make this better. We can make this different if we just kind of change things this way. And it's not something that I tend to do on land. And so
Mm-mm-mm.
the underwater kind of makes it easier to create for me. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think water brings back the magic of life that we all forgot about. We can create, like, we can fly, we can dance upside down, we can have shower of bubbles coming from the sky down, reverse
Yeah.
things. I mean, and do it for real. I mean, we don't need like amazing CG, whatever. It's just possible in real life.
Do you tend to feel like you're a child when you go underwater? Do you feel more childlike and,
Yeah,
and the responsibilities
yeah.
disappear?
Yeah, completely. I mean, when I'm in the water, I just don't think about any problems, and you're just so amazed by the beauty and you feel so good, and there's so many things to experience or not experience. It's so peaceful. I mean, and basically when you free dive, you stop thinking. You're down there and your body is in an alert mode, but also focus on just the heartbeat and slowing down the movement, and just being peaceful.
I think that's the thing. It's kind of tunnel vision, like it kind of narrows you down. That's what I
Yeah,
kind of love about it for myself is it makes my brain stop for a minute.
yeah. Mm-mm-mm.
What sort of techniques do you have for getting to that space? So before you do go under and sort of do the free diving, what sort of techniques are you
Mm.
using to get yourself into the right headspace?
I think I try to slow down my life on land already, because so it's not too much of a shock. If you are like completely excited and you jump into the water, and then you won't feel good. You have also to slow down a bit before you go, just to get your body and mind ready for the dive, the immersion. And yeah, just also breathe very slowly. There's no like amazing techniques, only if you want to go to 100 meters, you have a lot of skills
Yeah.
to learn, but just only slow down the breathing and focused on the exhaling. And I think this is the main lesson I learned from the ocean, is like exhaling, so emptying to be able to feel. And it's exactly what we are not doing on land. I mean, we fill our lives, our time, we go very quick. We want to do everything. But when something is full, there's no more you can put in. I mean, if you empty, if you give space, this is where you can bring new stuff in your life, and you can increase space inside you. And it's exactly what's happening in the water. I mean, to get ready to a dive, to get ready to stay as long as you can and to be comfortable, you just have to learn to exhale as much as possible, so you can fill your lungs with new fresh air, so new, fresh ideas, new, fresh way of things. Things. I think it's the best lesson water can teach us.
I think that's so important too, and it's just something that I've personally only sort of come to realize is that, like you say, we tend to try and breathe in as much as we can and not thinking
Yeah.
about cleaning ourselves out in
Mm-mm.
between, and sort of creating space and kind of making room in there for the new clean stuff to come in.
Yeah.
Was that something that you kind of came to yourself? Was that something that was taught to you, or is this just something that you kind of spiritually or came to yourself in terms of that sort of process?
I think life experience and sorrow teach me that. I think as for Amma, we need sorrow. We need this time where everything stops and there's a big break in our lives, in order to take a new step into life. And also, again, in our society, we are afraid of that. We don't. We want to have a perfect life with no pain and no aging and no nothing. But I mean, if we don't have that, we don't grow. And yeah, it's at that time where my life suddenly changed. that I understood. I was feeling this void into me, and I felt lost. But all of a sudden, I realized, oh my God, void is also space, and space is what
Yeah.
makes you able to go everywhere you want to. And then I related that to excelling and inspiration. And to be inspirational, you have to empty before you fill.
That's such a beautiful way of looking at it. And it is really taking that, taking something that is sad and sorrowful and kind of seeing the good and the beautiful and the future in it. I love that. I think for me, water kind of it when I go underwater, it forces me to face some things within me, whether it's a fear or a joy or something that I'm going through. I kind of find that
Yeah.
once I'm
Mm.
under the water, I can only think of, like a couple of things. And whatever
Yeah.
bubbles to the surface feels like something that I need to deal with under there.
Mm-mm.
And what I also find is that the process of holding my breath, and as my breath kind of, there's the CO2 kind of builds up, and my emotions change over that time, like in your
Mm.
film Narcos. Even
Mm.
through that sort of experience and that transition, I feel like I've learnt something. Even if I come up gasping for air, there is a
Mm-hmm.
journey that I went through.
Mm-mm.
Do you kind of find the same thing when you go underwater? Do you feel like every time you hold that breath and you push yourself, you go through some sort of journey and you kind of learn something?
I think, especially when you do deep diving, you have to be so accurate. It's a long meditation. It's really a state of meditation when you go down, because you cannot think about all the problems. You just have to focus, and your body. I mean, your body makes you focus on the essential, and the essential is what is safe movement, so you don't lose energy, and you dive not only into the depths, but you dive into yourself. And of course, what you find, what's hidden inside of us, it's not always pretty. And I mean, and this is why it's so deep inside us, because it's hidden, but it's so important to look for it. And yeah, completely. Being underwater brings you that, makes you come to the essential and to think about yourself and what you have deep inside.
Yeah, it kind of gives you that mirror, like you were saying
Yeah.
in Narcisse. It's that mirror of your own emotions. Like you're down there with
Mm.
yourself. You're not down there with anyone else. You're down there with
Yeah.
whatever you took with you.
Yep. And you better be ready.
Yeah, right. It is survival as well.
Yeah.
So, what else have you got in the works? Have you got projects coming up, or have you got things that you're working on at the moment?
Sure. I'm working in a new short film that is an ecologic fable about plastic waste. So it's involving underwater dancer, of course,
Yeah.
that is representing the soul of the ocean and also humanity. Facing a giant made of plastic waste, and at the beginning, it's a love affair, because when we started, we plastic was amazing. It was like the next big thing, and we loved it, and we didn't really expect that it was going to be a problem. So we, as the dancer is meeting the giant, they start to dance together and have fun. And then the giant gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the dance changes into a fight until the giant finally engulfed the dancer. And then there's this. We have to. You will have to follow up for the rest of the story.
Yeah. You have to stay tuned. Yeah.
And of course, I want to make everything for real. So the giant will be a real giant. We are already building the costume, and there will be a scuba diver in the costume with the, how do you call that? Like very long legs, artificial legs.
Oh,
So
stilts.
yeah, it's going to move like a puppet.
Oh, great.
So it's
That's
quite
awesome.
challenging. Yeah.
This is what I personally in my work, I like to do things practically as well. I kind of make them for real. I don't really get joy out of faking things or creating things in a computer.
Yeah.
So this is what I love is hearing other people doing stuff, the challenge of trying to pull something off in a real way, and
Yeah.
having people who want to do that with them, who want to kind of do,
Yeah.
it's almost like a stunt.
Mm, mm-mm. It's so easy now. It's too easy. We have only that now, like special effects.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are kind of conditioned to kind of think that things are fake these days,
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
especially with armor, that could have been done on a stage with, with wires and with a swing and a
Mm,
fan, but to do it underwater for real
mm.
and have people
And
kind of
it's
get that it's real.
yeah, it's so funny because when we launched Freefall and then on almost all our movies, or my movies, I don't say our, but yes, it's our movies. I mean, it's not only me, huh? It's all my team. I see the comments. Sometimes I look at the comments and we have so much of, no, this is all fake. This is a green screen
Yeah.
and they're holding on to, and I'm like, and there's like, no, for Freefall, there's like 10 cameras at the same time filming, and we're like, what? That's so funny.
That's what kind of gets me about people who think this stuff is fake, is that they don't realize how harder it's actually harder to do it, to fake it,
Yeah,
than it is just to do it for
yeah,
real.
yeah, yeah. They all argue together and it's like, no, I can see here there's a shadow that cannot be a real shadow, and there you can see that
Yeah.
is a fake thing. It's like, whoa.
They're seeing things that you never even saw yourself, and you made it.
No.
So Julie, what kind of inspires you? Like, what do you take inspiration from? Is it music? Is it paintings? Is it just other sources of artwork? Like,
Mm,
what do you find gets you inspired?
life, traveling, people, and comic book, and movies, of
Oh,
course.
cool.
Because what I think what I try to bring, and this is I think because I never learned. I don't know what you're not supposed to do, so I do it, and I guess it's a
Yeah.
chance that I never learned. And what I try, because I try to bring everything I see on movies and on TV to the cinema, and I try to bring it into the water. I'm always watching like to camera movement and stuff, and I try to reproduce underwater. I don't think people think too much about that. It's like it was like water was another element, but yeah, sure, it's another element. But you can learn so many things from. I mean, everything that had been shot on land and just bring it into the water, exactly like dance. I mean, I didn't try to do in mid-water movement. I mean, if I want to dance, I need to use the floor. I mean, when you dance on land, you dance on the floor. So if you dance in the water, you need to use the floor.
Yeah, I like that kind of approach. I like that idea of, of kind of forcing yourself through your guidelines to kind of do something. I need a floor, so I'm gonna dance on the floor underwater. I'm not going to float in
Yeah.
the middle of the water like I've seen done
Mm,
before. Like, I like that sort of
mm,
stuff.
mm, mm.
Yeah. Do you have favorite locations that you to shoot in? Like, do you prefer shooting in a tank, or do you prefer shooting out in the open ocean? What's your kind of preference?
It depends. It depends. It's easier to have a constrained environment, like in a pool. You have visibility, warm water. You can be very much creative. But in the open ocean, you can also discover so many things that you didn't think of. So that's the magic of it. So the element and life and everything from the water is also showing you a way that you wouldn't have think about. I mean, the light is changing, the visibility changing. So many things are changing. So you have to adapt a lot, and I love that. And you see from one brush around the world, all these like amazing underwater landscape that are not actually looking like underwater. And this is what I love. My favorite places are not mainly beautiful underwater corals, reef garden with a lot of fishes. I mean, diving in the cenotes in the Yucatan in Mexico is the most amazing thing you can do, because it's like diving on another planet. It's amazing.
Oh, it's beautiful down there. That it is that,
Yeah,
and it's this like the most surreal place you could dive, because
yeah.
you're kind of under the ground, but you're in this crystal clear
Mm.
water, and there is such a like an old feeling there. Like, it is such an old
Mm-mm-mm.
soul in that land.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a beautiful
I mean,
place.
you can feel all the spirits and it's really special.
I think that's one of the things I really liked about the One Breath Around the World was seeing all these different locations. It's sort of like a big montage. It was super cool, and seeing some of the locations that were, as you say, like not particularly traditionally beautiful, but you guys turning it into something that was interesting and fascinating. That was quite incredible. How long did it take you to film all that footage? Because it's so many different locations.
Actually, we decided to go for a family trip. We didn't want it to go back and forth and take like 100 planes. So with our daughter, we quit France and drew a map and decided to go to all these different places. And it was like for 6 months. A 6 months trip all around, staying a bit more to some places and discover new ones. But a lot of them were planned.
Wow. So how were you traveling around? Was it like were you getting planes, or were you kind of on a boat for a while?
Yeah,
What was the kind of
yeah, no,
setup?
no, no. Yeah. Setup was taking place in between locations, but we were like staying, like have a bit some life experience where we were staying.
That's kind of like a dream trip, right? Because you're basically going to all the best places to dive in the world.
Yeah, it was really beautiful, and doing that as a family with our daughter was really crazy.
How old was your daughter?
I think it was 5.
Oh, okay. So she was old enough to enjoy it. Was she kind of
Yeah,
diving with you as well? Was she...
yeah. I mean, the first trip we did was in Mauritius, and we did the sperm whales. And I have like amazing images of her and me. She's on my back, and we are in the middle of the pod of sperm whales. She had like crazy experience.
That's not an experience most children get to have.
Not really. When we arrived to French Polynesia, she said, "Oh, mom, what animals are we gonna see?" I said, "Yeah, it's the humpback whales." I said, "Really? Again?" I was like, "Oh no!"
She's getting bored of things.
Oh my god! But no, she's not actually.
Does she love the water as much as you guys do?
Yes, she does. But at the beginning, as a free diving couples, we wanted to put her as a baby swimmer. She was like 3 months, and she hated it. I had pictures of her. She looks like, my god, she's really not enjoying. So really we didn't push,
Right.
but we were like, oh my god, she doesn't like the water. What are we gonna do? But we didn't force her, and of course now she loves it.
That's great. Yeah. And so now, like lots of family trips. Does she get involved in the filming as well?
In the filming. But we are separated now with Guillaume, so we all both have our life, and he is actually now in French Polynesia with her. Every year he goes back there, and they spent like 2 months and a half for humpback whale season. So she's not so bored about humpbacks, so she lives there.
Right.
And I was for shooting in the Cayman Islands, and I took her there, filming with the stingrays. Yeah, every time I can bring her, we take her to shooting trips.
No, it's amazing.
Mm,
It kind of reminds me of the Cousteau family, kind of growing up and
yeah,
the adventures they would have had.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm being very very jealous of your daughter. I think the image of freedivers with sperm whales, I think, is one that is going to stay with me for a long time. I think that's like one of my fantasies is to
Mm-mm.
swim with the sperm whales. That's just such a unique kind of image. What was that
Mm.
like being with the sperm whales? Was that something that was hard to kind of do? Or were they accepting of you
Yeah.
guys being in the water with them?
So we always been very lucky in our filming, and it maybe also because we are always quite patient and respectful about life, about the animals. But the sperm whales were very difficult to have. We had a lot of flybys, but what we wanted to achieve was to have the sleeping sperm whales, sleeping straight, vertical,
Yeah.
and to have the big bud. So we had that the 2 last days of shoot, and we extended the shoot. And on that last day, the guy from the boat spot. I don't know how they do that. They can spot from over the water the sperm whales sleeping. Okay, well, So he
Oh,
just
right.
told us
So you just see the surface
to
of the water or
yeah,
something, and
yeah, the shad, I don't know. So we just went really carefully in the water, and I'm sure because we are on breasthold. We make no noise, no bubbles, and we're really fast into the water. They don't have time to wake up, or they don't even realize we're here, and this is why we could have this shot. But also for the pod, we were following this group from the early morning that day, but we decided not to go in the water when they were traveling, and we waited until maybe, I don't know, 5 6 hours until we saw them gathering together. And we saw them gathering and play, and we waited again. Then we sent Guillaume alone, and then me, and then the rest of the group, and we could stay we stayed like 2 hours with the pod, like being part of the pod. They were
amazing.
accepting us. They were doing their echolocation on us to understand what we were. And at some point I was like, I left the camera and I said, I just enjoy. I mean, I don't know what else to film now. It was amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Do you kind of look at your life and kind of go, how did I get here? Like, how did I have this kind of amazing life?
I think we all deserve and must deserve
Yeah,
it. Just try to enjoy it day by day. And I'm always very thankful, yeah, for all this beautiful experience. But it's also a choice, not easy to decide to do something nobody teach you, or something that nobody's expecting from you. And it's a lot of choices that you make in life, and also opportunities, of course. But I'm very lucky, but I feel grateful for everything. And you have to take all the opportunities to dream and to do what you really feel you want to do and what you love.
You have to be open to things and to say yes to stuff so that the dots can line up and you can have those experiences.
Step out of the dogma of money and fame. And it's easy for me to say that because now I also have that. But from the beginning it was not that at all. I couldn't live from what I was doing. I was just doing it because I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it wasn't financial. It wasn't your career at that point. It was just something that you loved to do.
Yeah.
Your passion.
Lucky me. What about if I was dreaming about being an underwater filmmaker doing amazing dance film that would be worldwide, blah, blah, blah. Ooh, that would have been like quite scary. I'm quite lucky that just all of this happened to me without really expecting it.
Yeah, it wasn't. You didn't plan it. You weren't kind of hoping for it. It just came and you accepted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think so. I speak to a lot of underwater people on the podcast, and I think a lot of what draws us to the water is that openness and that acceptingness. Like I don't speak to a lot of people who are water people who are uptight or forcing things. I think we're all very open to whatever happens is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can't, you cannot force the water. You cannot force wildlife. You cannot fight against the water.
Exactly. Like they say, the path of least resistance.
Yep.
Julie, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Just talking to you, I've loved your work for so long, and being able to kind of chat with you.
Yeah, Brett, that was amazing.
Yeah, of course. And look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
Hey. I want to do a feature film.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do a feature film.
That would be amazing. Not computers. Do it for real.
Exactly.
Sounds good. Sign me up.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And as always, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. If you'd like to support with the production of these episodes, you can purchase our very cool merchandise at theunderwaterpodcast.com. We've got branded coffee mugs, stickers, beer cozies, and posters featuring our amazing illustration and logo by Joe Hodino. If you'd like to connect with us or learn more about our guests, you can reach us at theunderwaterpodcast.com or on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group where you can discuss the episodes and even get your questions answered by our guests. There's a link to it in the show notes. Also, don't forget about Waterproof magazine, showcasing the best in underwater art. read it online, or purchase a print edition at waterproofmag.org. You can learn more about my underwater photography workshops and mentoring at brettstanley.com or Brett S Photo on Instagram. The Underwater Podcast is presented and produced by me, Brett Stanley, and our music is Neo by Oh Boy. Keep creating, everyone. I'll see you in the water.